that didn't take long last night. Caitlin Clark, by the way. It's one of those where you go, all right, what time's the game start? And then Paulie texts me and he goes, hey, Peacock, hurry, because Peacock carried the game. Flipped over, see Caitlin Clark coming down the floor, launching from the logo. Bang. This is what it sounded like.
Here comes Clark. How will she go for history? There it is! The all-time leading scorer in women's college basketball.
Yeah, and you look at that shot. I mean, you don't have to take a logo shot. And it just felt like, hey, let me get this record out of the way, this pesky record out of the way. And I don't know, while I'm still hot, maybe I put up 49 points total. And, you can't create a phenomenon. It's strange where it just happens. There has to be things that kind of combined to make something a phenomenon. Steph Curry at Davidson was a phenomenon. Wasn't a great team, but they got to the tournament. He stayed one more year. He wanted to play point guard and then went to the NBA. Then he goes to the NBA, has ankle problems. He plays for a defensive-minded coach in Mark Jackson. Steve Kerr comes in, and then Steph gets healthy, and then Steph becomes Steph Curry. But there are moments. He had a shot against Oklahoma City. This had to be, 2015 maybe? Mike Breen on the call. It was this Saturday night. And we're watching this at a bar in New York City. And as soon as he pulled up, I go, oh, my God. And you see Steve Kerr almost cover his face with his hands like, you got to be, oh, good shot. And after that, it became a whole new world in the NBA and in college and in high school and in grade school. And I wonder, Caitlin Clark is 22. So 9 years ago, she's 13 years of age. She's already said that, Steph Curry had a huge influence on her because we think they're bad shots, but they're not bad shots for her. Steph Curry, we think they're bad shots, or at least we did. We don't anymore. So it's a phenomenon that you have. She's a great player, great shooter, great passer. If you could somehow bring her to Indianapolis this weekend and let her go in the three-point shooting contest. And we have a late substitution. Caitlin Clark is going to fill in for Lauri Markkanen. Say hello to Caitlin Clark. But you have Sabrina Ionescu going against Steph Curry. If you didn't have that, I bet Steph would be up for it if you said, hey, Caitlin is going to come in and going to be in the three-point shooting. Or just you two would be wonderful. And it would be the highlight of the All-Star weekend. Yeah, Pauline.
Clark would take the rack of balls and roll them out 8 more feet. Like, let me get in my range.
She did talk about the record-breaking basket after the game.
Yeah, I mean, you all knew I was going to shoot a logo 3 for the record. Come on now.
Just take us through beginning that.
Well, I thought about doing it a couple possessions earlier, but I was a little tired, so I needed to catch my breath a little bit. But yeah, I think I kind of stepped back to my left a little bit and was able to get it off and went in and then celebrated. And honestly, warming up, my shot just felt good, so I knew it was going to be kind of one of those nights and kind of played with a little bit more pep in my step. And I knew that's what this team needed after coming off of a loss. And just lucky, my teammates, I'm just so thankful. They let me be me, and I wouldn't be where I am if it wasn't for them. So, yeah, I'm just really thankful.
She had 23 in the first quarter. And I kept thinking, all right, can you keep this pace up? Do you want to keep this pace up? Is Michigan going to stay in the game? Because that was probably more important for the final point total for her. If Michigan stayed in the game, she could stay in the game. They had to win the game. They have a big game coming up with Indiana, I think, coming up this weekend. But you watch the amount of energy it takes to be that kind of scorer every single night. Everybody knows you have to take 30 shots. You're going to take 30 shots. You have to find a way to get those shots up, like Iverson and Kobe and Jordan. Great players every single night know I have to do that same thing I just did the previous night, and maybe I do it better. But Caitlin Clark, what she did, how she did it, it's remarkable. And Pete Maravich's all-time record is certainly within sight. I think she has 4 more regular season games, and then she'll have the tournament as well. Obviously, Pete Maravich only played 3 years, didn't play as many tournament games, but Caitlin Clark, what she's done is a phenomenon. She's a phenomenon. It's like Bo Jackson. Frank Gore has 3 times or 4 times as many yards as Bo Jackson, but Bo Jackson was a phenomenon. There's just certain athletes at certain time, they do things, and you go, now, is it sustainable? Like Lynn Sanity, he was a phenomenon. He couldn't extend it, but what he did, when he did it, how he did it, where he did it, it was like, wow. You have those wow moments. Now, Caitlin Clark has been great for 4 years and will be great in the WNBA. But this is a moment where you'll look back and go, God, I remember that. Although I did think as soon as she hit the hoop, Kelsey Plum was the all-time leading scorer. Played at Washington, plays in the WNBA with Las Vegas. And I thought, she didn't get this. Nobody went, that's the record breaker. Whoever record she broke may have been a woman from Ohio State, but then you're like, okay, she didn't get that fanfare, but she didn't play this way. Now we're watching, a female Steph Curry, and that's the phenomenon. That she's doing it at Iowa, not exactly a basketball powerhouse. They beat South Carolina last year. They go to the title game. They lose to LSU. But it takes a lot to make that phenomenon, and she's got staying power. Yes, Eaton.
Caitlin Clark seems to have established a before and after that lots of players don't do. Like Steph Curry, there was a before Steph, and now there's an after Steph. The game is different. I think, women's college basketball seems to be different now that Caitlin Clark has existed.
Yeah, and you're seeing, if you watch, I'm watching a game last night. It was South Carolina and Tennessee, and I'm just watching the handles on these women.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It is, and they can shoot. They can shoot. And I remember talking to John Wooden many, many, many years ago, and he told me that he loved the purity of women's college basketball. And it surprised me. But he said, fundamentally, they know what they're doing. They play basketball in a pure way. Now, that doesn't mean it's exciting. Now it's becoming really exciting. And last night, Caitlin Clark did it in dramatic fashion. All right, you got a poll question for me today, Seton.
Obviously, other than the Jacksonville poll questions that we're running with, we have one here from Paulie. We have a slew from Friday Todd.
Ooh, Friday Todd. By the way, we have Rhyme Time with Todd coming up a little bit later on.
Oh.
Yeah, Rhyme Time.
Nobody asked for it, but you're going to get it.
Definitely did not.
I love Rhyme Time, I got to admit. I really do.
Well, the first edition was pretty spectacular.
Pretty much the GOAT.
Yes. But as with all things related to Todd, sometimes we do it a second or third or fourth or fifth time.
That's a Valentine's theme, even though it'll be 2 days past Valentine's Day.
So it's a post-Valentine's rhyme time.
Yeah, it has to do with Valentine's-related type things.
Okay, all right. So what else do you have, Seton?
That's disappointing. This one's from Paul. If you could only watch one this year, the men's NCAA basketball tournament or the women's NCAA basketball tournament?
Yeah, Paul.
I've been sitting on this poll question for a month. I actually told Seton I've been sitting on it because I knew it would get a reaction. If you could only watch one this year. Now, I'm very skewed on this topic, so I'm going to open it up to the room.
Todd, men or women's tournament this year?
I will still watch the men, but I do have an increased curiosity about how the women play.
Did you say Iowa?
I would rather watch the men still.
Okay. Seton, what about you?
I'm going to leave that tournament to LSU guys. I'm going to watch the men.
Marvin.
That was clever. The men.
Yeah.
It's dependent on one player in the women's tournament.
It's dependent on one player and the matchup.
You want LSU to face
Correct.
Iowa.
Without question.
Yeah.
Correct.
Whenever they would meet in the tournament, that's really it.
I'll watch that game for sure.
South Carolina is the best team in the country, but they don't have any star power there. USC has a star with their freshman guard, Juju Watkins. But as far as, it's Caitlin Clark in the tournament. I don't know if people are going, man, I got to watch Ohio State. They're one of the best teams in the country. Yeah, Paulie.
It's like the NCAA men's tournament doesn't have a player to focus on. There's not a focal point player or focal point team. It's a great tournament. It always pays off with upsets and so on and so forth and storylines. But there's no appointment programming for the men's tournament. It's just as great historically.
Yes, because then you're going to fall in love with somebody or a team or a player, and then you're going to go, I'm going to follow them. It happens every single year. And then usually you have a blue blood win the title. And that's probably going to be the case this year. Yes, Eden.
Right. There is no appointment viewing for the men's NCAA tournament because the entire thing is. The whole thing is one large. The women have a player to watch.
Yeah.
No offense.
Yeah, I would say the men's tournament. Yeah. Because it never fails to deliver. There's always a storyline or two where you can't script it, where you can't go, yep, I thought Butler was going to go to the Final Four, go back to the title game again, nearly win the game. But then you have all of these Northern Iowa and George Mason. And, it's every year you have one of those games, one of those moments where you go, yep, they did it again. Yeah, Paulie?
When I workshopped this poll question, I knew that it would probably be 80% would probably vote for the men's tournament. It was going to be a loss. But this would be the first time in my lifetime that it's a discussion. In our lifetime, that it's an actual discussion you could have. It wouldn't be like, can you imagine throwing this poll question out 10 years ago?
Yeah, but I think with the UConn women, they had star power that people would watch that team. Now we're watching one player. So I think that the women's tournament has had that before because you had UConn. You want to see if they could go undefeated. Yes, Marv.
You know what? If the women's championship game was LSU versus Iowa, I would take that over any matchup on the men's side.
Okay. Yeah. And I agree with that as well. That's what we would want to see as another rematch. Other than that, we'll follow Caitlin Clark